Again, Erev Shabbos, everybody. Welcome to Jerry's Corona Contemplations for Parshat Re'eh. Yes, Corona is still with us, unfortunately, but things do seem to be getting better, thank God. Things should continue to get better, and let us hope and pray that this plague, the China virus, is gone from us as quickly as possible. But let's continue our way through Sefer Devarim, studying Moshe Rabbeinu's last will and testament to Am Yisrael. So in Parshat Re'eh, well, you might be wondering, why is there an eyeball up there on the screen? And that is because Moshe, it's not only the name of the Parsha, but it's the first word of the Parsha. And Moshe, Hashem through Moshe, of course, is telling us, Re'eh, Natati lifnechem hayom bracha uklala. I'm giving you today a blessing and a curse. And we're told to keep our eyes open and see, look. We saw earlier, a couple of parshiot ago, when Hashem said to us, Re'ei natati lifnechem et haaretz, ba'u rishu et haaretz. Look, I'm giving you the land, go and conquer it. Again, Hashem is telling us, Re'ei, I'm giving you bracha uklala, the bracha on Har Grizim and the klala on Har Eval. The mountains aren't that important right here, but what Hashem is telling us is that if we just open our eyes and we look at the world and we see what's going on, we'll see that Hashem is in charge of everything, that nothing is by accident. And there is a blessing and there is a curse. And as we said, as Rav Miller Zatzal said, life comes with a user's manual, with an owner's manual. It's called the Torah. For best results, use only as instructed, only as directed. And we will see that things will be good if we just do as we are instructed. It says further in this week's Parsha, Ki lo batem arata, you haven't come to hear el hamenucha ve'el hanachala, to your inheritance that God gave you. Va'avartem et hayarden, you'll cross over the Jordan. V'yashaftem ba'aretz, and you will settle in the land that God has given you. V'heniach lachem mikol oivechem, you will have rest from all your enemies around you. V'yashaftem betach, and you will live securely in the land, and only in the land. The blessing is given in the land. Now, how interesting is it? You know, I always say I don't believe in coincidence. But there is no coincidence. Mikra is the same letters. Mikra in Hebrew means coincidence, but there is no mikra. If you rearrange the letters, it's Rak Me Hashem. Everything only comes from Hashem. We're sitting here learning this Parsha on the very day that President Trump brokered a peace deal between Israel and none other than the United Arab Emirates. Who would have thunk that? Certainly not I 20 years ago. And yet here we are. Not such good news for Hamas and Hezbollah, thank God. And again, we see history unfolding in front of us. This is a historic moment. And this is all happening as Aliyah, people moving to Israel, is getting greater and greater. And Hashem has his ways. I know sometimes it makes no sense to us. And as I've said so many times, how would someone going through the Holocaust even believe that there could be such a thing as a Jewish state with one of the most powerful armies in the world and a world power? You would have told them that, they would have said, you're out of your mind. Yet here we are on the Corona, because the gates were closed. There's over 100,000 people waiting to make Aliyah. Hashem has his ways. We don't understand them. They don't make sense to us. They're not supposed to make sense to us. But nonetheless, this is what's going on. And the Parsha says further, Usmachtem lifnei Hashem Elokeichem. You'll be happy before Hashem, you, your children. Everything that I tell you to do, you will do, and it will be good. All you have to do is re'eh. open your eyes and see that everything is from Hashem, and all we have to do is follow the instructions, and everything will be in our best interest. You know, this week's Parsha, the Torah says, Lo tosef alav v'lo tigra mimenu. Don't add to it and don't subtract to it. Whatever I tell you, don't add to it and don't subtract from it. Now, subtract from it I understand. But what's the lo tosef alav? What is the don't add to it? So this is a little bit of a warning for those that like to be zealous. You know, we're told 8 tzitzit, not 9, right, strings. 4 tzitzit on the beged, not 5. If someone wants to be, as, how shall we say, overly stringent with themselves, gesundheit, have a nice time. But realize where the halacha ends and where the chumrah begins. And don't turn chumras into halachas. And that goes the other way as well. You know, it's a derabanan. What do you mean it's a derabanan? A derabanan is a halacha. People say, it's only a derabanan. And the old joke, I said it last week. If Yishuv Eretz Yisrael was a chumrah, everyone would do it. The people don't do it because it's only a doraisa, So let's keep in mind, lo tosef alav v'lo tigra mimenu. The Torah is perfect. What we are told to do is perfect, and we follow and we learn. Very important. We don't blindly follow. We learn and we understand and we proceed. You can't go through Parshat Re'eh without talking about kashrus. You just can't. Just like we did back in Shmini. So we have to talk about the animals that we eat, as the song goes, and the ones that we don't. So we know that for meat, for animals, they have to have 2 signs. They have to have the split hoof, and they have to chew their cud. They have to be a ruminant. And birds, no birds of prey, and the Torah lists them. And with the fish, no bottom feeders, no shellfish, because they eat garbage. You ever hear the expression, you are what you eat? This is where it comes from. The Torah doesn't want us eating certain animals because they display certain characteristics. We don't eat lions. We don't eat animals that are hunters. We don't, like we said with the fish, we don't eat sharks because sharks eat garbage. You could cut open a shark and find a car. You don't believe me? Go watch Jaws. A license plate came out, right? Same thing with, I said birds of prey, things that hunt. Hashem is telling us we don't want the characteristics of certain animals. The one that's the most interesting, of course, is the pig. And the pig is the only animal that has the outward sign and not the internal sign. The pig is like, look how kosher I am. I have the split hoof. But inside, not so much. And it's very interesting that I meet people that don't keep kosher, but they won't eat pig. I just find that odd. And I mean, you won't eat a horse. I mean, no one even thinks of eating a horse, really. But I guess if you're hungry enough, you'll eat anything. But you talk to people, I don't keep kosher, but a pig I can't eat feh. Why is that? Because the pig, like I said, looks kosher, but isn't inside. The pig is the hypocrite. God hates hypocrites. And it's saying, you don't want, because let's face it, I mean, pigs eat garbage, they live in their own, it's pretty obvious, and if you actually study the anatomy of a pig, how they sweat and knot, and you're really eating crap, excuse me, but that's not the point. The point is that it's trying to show, oh, look how frum I am, look how religious I look. But inside, I cheat, I steal, I do all this, unclean business. And that is the trait, above all others, that Hashem is telling us, don't do that. And it's so interesting that people that otherwise they'll eat a lobster, but they wouldn't eat a pig. It's very interesting. I think that's a lesson that we all have to take to heart, that you have to be just as kosher inside as you look outside. And if you're not, you gotta really think to myself, do I want to go through life being a pig? One other point about kashrut, and I mentioned this back in Shemini and it bears repeating. We know how old the Torah is. It's 3,300 something years, I don't remember exactly, 3330, I don't remember. But it's over 3,300 years. It was the Maimed Har Sinai, the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai. But let's say we just go with the Dead Sea Scrolls, because that's the oldest copy of the Torah that's been authenticated and has been carbon dated, and it's somewhere between 2,500 and 2,600 years old. Now let's think for a second. Read the laws of kashrut. And you could actually see them in the Dead Sea Scrolls, because they have Sefer Devarim. You could actually read this. And it says, these are the animals that have this sign and not that sign. And these fins and not scales. You have to have fins and scales. You can't have fins without scales like a shark. That's not kosher. And these are the birds. You know where the birds are. They're up there, right? These are the birds that you can eat, and these are the birds that you can't eat. And it lists them. Now let me ask you something. Let's say you're a Swami hanging out with the Essenes in 2,500 years ago desert by the Dead Sea. And you're going to make a religion for the Essenes, right? You're going to create a religion. Would you have made that claim? That these are the animals that have these signs and these are the ones. So whoever wrote this book, assuming it wasn't God, right, had to have had an encyclopedic knowledge of zoology and marine biology, and would have to know that this would continue throughout time. Because all you would need to find is one other pig. And there goes your religion. So I would submit that whoever wrote that book had to have been the manufacturer, to have known all the birds and all the animals. Some of these animals and birds don't exist in this part of the world. And would have had to have gone to the bottom of the Marianas Trench to know all about marine biology. Would you have made that claim? It had to have been the manufacturer. I mean, prove me wrong. Anyway, on that note, Shabbat hi makar habracha. Shabbat is the source of all blessings. So as Walter says, don't roll on Shabbos. Have an absolutely wonderful, peaceful Shabbos with your family. Light the candles. Say the Kiddush. Spend quality time with your family. Turn off the damn phone. And just be at peace with your family. Have some spiritual time. Do one other mitzvah, something else for Hashem. Speak of the Torah. Read some Dvar Torah out loud to your kids. Spend an extra few moments in spirituality. Have an absolutely, sorry about that. Have an absolutely wonderful Shabbos, everybody. And join us back here next week for Parshat, my thing is not working. Join us back here next week for Parshat Shoftim, when we will talk about judges and the law a little bit more. Thank you for joining us. Have an absolutely wonderful, peaceful weekend and Shabbat. Thanks for joining.